Well, so far all the reports we've created have been table reports. I'm going to create a matrix report. For this, I'll use Report Builder to create a new blank report. As you can see, I'm showing the properties window, and I'll just turn that off for the meantime. Also turn off the parameters window just for now, since that's not really the point of this demonstration. And we've already created some simple data sets, and we'll move past that by adding a shared data set reference. So I'm going to use a shared data set, and I'll browse for the order details by date and customer by state params. This is just a data set query that I've already created, and for simplicity's sake, I won't rename it, but normally I would give that a name that would be similar to the shared data set name. So with that data set ready, let's go ahead and give our report a title. So I'll call this sales quantity by date and customer. My reports are getting a little more complex, which means I need to be a little more creative with the names and titles. All right, so my point is to make this a matrix report. So let's go ahead and insert a matrix. I'll go ahead and plop that right there in the upper left-hand corner below the title. And now we can simply drag and drop fields into the matrix to define these groups. Earlier when I was creating the table report, I dragged down into the row groups, which we could also do, but it's actually easier to drag right into the actual matrix within the report canvas. So I'm going to group my data on rows by year, and then the month label. Now we will need to deal with the ordering of that month label. I just want to show you while I'm hovering the mouse, look for the big heavy cursor. You see that there on the left, and then on the right as I'm hovering. I want that to the right of my calendar year, and that creates the row group after the calendar year. And then I want the order date after that. So that's my order date key. Same thing there. I want to pay attention to where that little bracket shows up on the right side is where I want it. And then I would like to see my quantity in the measure field, or the numeric field that gets aggregated. And that's going to be at the intersection of the order date and the state province. That's at the very top. That's going to become my first column group. And then my customer is after that. Now, this is functional, though it's not going to be very pretty. Just to separate the headers from the actual records, I'm going to click once in the matrix, and then I'll select these top three header rows and make them bold. I'll do the same thing with my with these header columns. I'm just going to drag across the columns that will include everything except for the sum of quantity. I'm going to make that bold. Now, I told you this is not going to be pretty, but it will let me test my report and see that it's functional. As you can see, the shared data set had some parameters built in. We'll be talking more about parameters a little bit later on, but I didn't need to worry about the data set design by using that shared data set. All right, so as you can see, you can pretty much tell what's going on here. For calendar year 2015, within the first month, April, again, we'll deal with the sorting here briefly. And then for the first date in April, we can see that I only have a quantity for just a few stores. So you can see that I have it for this store, and then this store record, and then some others. Now that's a very wide report, which is really a characteristic of the matrix. It expands as we have different distinct values in whatever we've grouped on within the column groups. So this is a report that's really made more for display than for printing. However, we can print a matrix report. It's just going to produce a lot of pages based both on rows and columns. So let's clean this up a little bit. You can see that we've got quantity repeated over and over again. That's not necessary at all. So I'm going to go back to design. I'm just going to remove the word quantity. I can add a header text box or some indication for the user up above that that's quantity. If I had multiple numeric values here at the intersect point of customer and order date, then I might want those headers, but they're still going to be redundant. Let's go ahead and just clean up our labels now. We know that we're dealing with calendar date parts, so we can just call this year. We'll just call this month. And we can just call this order date. Now you saw that the order date was formatted so that it showed the time, and since we really only have date values in there, it always showed midnight. So I want to format that differently. And if I just choose date, the default is going to be a simple date. Now at this point, I want to go back and show my properties window. Because as we start getting into more details and more advanced report design, we need to have more control. And that may require that rather than working with these simple property features up in the ribbon, that we need to actually look at the individual property window. So if I look at the format property for this cell, this text box right here, you can see that the format property is just a lowercase d, and that is actually the same as month slash, capital M month slash D slash YYYY in a US English locale. Lowercase d is .NET shorthand for a short date expressed in a region locale specific format. So that's an appropriate way to format that. But if I wanted to have more explicit control, then I may need to use the different format strings here. Okay, so there's my state province, there's my customer, and then I do need to format my quantity, which I can do just by choosing number. And I'll go ahead and accept that there's a 1,000 separator. Notice that I can toggle that comma on and off, even though it is going to be locale specific, either a period or a comma. And the number of decimal positions isn't real obvious at first, but if you go to this rightmost button right here, you can see that there is an opportunity to decrease the decimal positions. And again, before we do that, I'm going to show the format. You can see that by default it's N2, which means a number with 2 decimal positions. And if I decrease that, you'll see that that number goes down. So it might actually be easier just to go to this format property and either type N0, or if I want to explicitly format it regardless of the region settings, I could say pound, comma, pound, pound, 0. And that, at least for positive numbers, that would be the same as N0. Now I do want to use the automatic formatting, which takes care of empty, null values and negative values. And that's the easiest way to do that. So this should be a readable report now. So I see my dates are formatted correctly. I still need to deal with sorting the months in the right order. But my year, my month looks good. I see my customer names. My quantities all appear to be formatted correctly. Let's find a bigger one with some thousands in it. It's there was one. All right, so you can see that the comma is there. All right, and then we also want to make sure that we have totals as well. So I'm going to go back and do 2 things. I'm going to sort the months, and then we'll add totals. So if I go down to the calendar month label group, it's just like we did before with a table, I'm going to go to Group Properties and go to Sorting. And because the calendar month label is a text value, it is sorting according to that text value, but that's not the way I want to sort. This is why we included the calendar month number field, which will be sorted in alphanumeric sort order. It's a number, so it actually sorts numerically. So that should work. And now I'm going to add my total. So I'll go down to the order date key, and I'll just say add total after, go up one level, and say add total after, go up to the top level, add total after. I could do the same thing here for my customers and states, just to keep things nice and simple. I'll just add customer, add total. Let's do that again. I guess I did accidentally. And I'm going to make all of these rows and columns for my totals bold. All the formatting is assumed, so it's actually copying all of the properties from this cell. So when I add my totals, my format properties and any other properties that I've set will be copied. So that should all be good. We'll go ahead and run that just to make sure that that works. So we do see that January is now first, followed by February. There's the total for January. If I go back up top, Alabama is first as it was before. And I should see my total for Alabama. Then I see Alaska. So now we have a working matrix report.